Hey everyone, thanks for joining another Coffee with Kittl. Today we are going to be talking about some things that you probably haven't heard us talk about on the Kittl channel, which I am super excited for. We talk about print on demand a lot, we talk about merch design a lot, we talk about general graphic design a lot, principles, things like that. But we don't really talk about UX a whole lot. We don't talk about the website side of things and how that's extremely important for those of you who are either freelance graphic designers or just freelance creatives. And then we also don't talk about how AI can even be implemented with UX. That's just definitely not a concept I know of. So I've got my notepad with pencil here to take notes. But I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of introduce yourself, what it is that you do, and then we'll dive into some questions. And then maybe we can end with talking about one of your posts you made on LinkedIn, kind of about this creative side hustle struggle type thing that creatives feel like they have to do, but like might behoove them to do one or two of these things. But anyway, we can start with the intro and then see where we go.
Yeah, sure. Well, hi everyone, and hi Drew. I'm happy to meet you in virtual person, and thank you for the invitation. I'm always excited to speak to the design community, especially since I feel like this is a bit going out of my classic zone and moving. I mean, I'm mostly talking to UX designers in my community. So this is an opportunity to maybe reach other roles or just people, just creatives in general. So I'm excited for this. A couple of words about me. I'm a UX designer. Well, now we're calling ourselves product designers, which makes sense because I think the UX role is more holistic than we used to think about it in the past. So I've been a product designer for over 10 years. I have been working in large companies for most of my career, ING Bank, UiPath, and for the past year, I worked at Miro, which is one of the products that product designers love. And in the last years of my career, both within UiPath and especially at Miro, I have been working as the product designer for AI. So I've kind of niched into this problem space, if you want. The product I designed within UiPath for my last year and a half there is called Clipboard AI, and it was the first LLM-based product in UiPath, and it was also an experience, my first deep experience in the AI space and the challenges and opportunities it brings for product design and for our design philosophy in general, which is a very interesting but sort of abstract conversation. And also on the side, I have been building a design community. I run these channels called UX Goodies, and now I also have a newsletter which is called AI Goodies. And so I'm doing a lot of, if you want, community work, content work. There is an intersection between these two anyhow. So I'm pretty active in the design space. And yeah, I've also launched a design school. I teach a course called AI for Designers on Interaction Design Foundation, which is the biggest UX design online school. So yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. I can give even a more extensive intro, like my speaking stuff. I've been doing a lot of talks for the past year, but I'm going to stop here.
Gotcha. Okay, so I want to ask real 30,000 foot before we dive into more niche or specific things. So you said a second ago that UX is like more holistic or something, and that like now a lot of you like to be called just product designers. Can you just maybe break down and briefly define like UI, UX, and then what you are talking about as product designer? I have genuinely in history thought there are product designers under both UI and UX or whatever, just for the product. So maybe if you could just define these terms, it'd be helpful for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going down a short history. I hope it's going to be short. I can't promise, but I'll do my best. So essentially, when the design role appeared, well, the UX design term was coined, I don't know, 40 years ago. So it's not new. But in the beginning, the industry was mostly interaction designers. That's what this name existed, and web designers. So I think the original UX designer was initially called web designer, right? And they were
Yeah.
mostly building websites because that was the world of tech when when the internet was starting to grow, right? And then we started niching. So we now had in the more, let's say, in the phase where design started to mature as an industry and we became more frameworky and have standards now and so on. So we moved into niching or defining more specialized roles. And one of them was definitely UX designer, which now stood for this more generalistic kind of approach to the product, to solving problems, right? So UX designers were mostly in charge with the strategy, the thinking, how do we tackle this problem, and so on. We also had UX researchers, and we still have them. UX researchers were mostly concerned with the discovery phase, right? So we know we have a problem, and then we start unpacking that problem. We talk to users, we run benchmarking studies, interviews, diary studies, whatever, surveys, and so on, right? So UX researchers are trying to give us answers. And then the UX designers use those answers. And then the UI designers, which is another category that we used to have a very clear definition for in the past, is the person who comes and gives the, let's say, interaction layer. How will this behave? How will this actually look like when people are going to use the solution? So they are more concerned with interaction design, motion design, visual design in general. So it's, let's say, if you think about it as a linear process, which is never the case. Design is not linear. It's back and forth, messy, overlapping. But UI
Yeah.
designers were the people who were giving this kind of final layer to the solution that UX designers came to. So this was the past because now there's this, the industry, of course, is suffering because of the economic downturn, layoffs. So we're all kind of converging towards a more generalistic or universal role called product design. And most companies and big tech companies are now hiring product designers, and they're expected to be able to act as UX designers, but also as UI designers. So the role started as one role, and then it diverged into two roles. It split, and now it's coming back together into a single role. So
Mm.
most product designers that now get jobs and are sought after are the ones who can also be UI designers. So we're not seeing that differentiation as much in companies and what they're hiring for and what their needs are. So most product designers can do this process end to end, from research to ideation and strategy and solutioning, collaboration, and then the visual part at the end. So I
Gotcha.
think, yeah, in that sense, product designer is more holistic.
Yeah, I definitely would agree that I'm seeing that way more often in terms of like casting role or job description and resumes and things like that. I'm seeing way more product designer, less UX designer or UX UI specialist or UX research. I'm seeing much more just like senior product designer, that kind of thing. So I definitely agree there. And I'm curious to know, like, uh, maybe again a little bit more globally, high reaching. I feel like my background is also in UX. I was a UX at the time. We called it UX designer. So I was a UX designer at a previous agency, but I was on the side where I was responsible for kind of doing both. So I would actually host these discovery sessions, but then was also involved in wireframing. So somewhere in the middle, and then we would hand it off to a team that would do motion and things like that. But UX, we'll just call it UX or product design, and design in general. So let's say design principles. So now I'm talking more about things like hierarchy, typography, all of this kind of stuff is very important and intertwined, although it may not feel that way. Like I think as a graphic designer now, or more foremost, I have graphic design in this kind of light that I think about it in these ways, and I can see how it attaches to product design or UX design or whatever. I can see how it's implemented. But when I was just on the UX UI side, I was just thinking about it as problem solving. I know what things are supposed to look like. I know where things are supposed to be categorized. I know this is supposed to drop down. I know you're supposed to be able to log in and it should work, that kind of stuff. So can you maybe talk about like the integration of just design and UX and how it's so important? Because the reason I'm asking this is I'm wondering if there's going to be people that are watching right now and they want to get into this world of designing, whether it's the research side, whether it's the actual layout side, whether it's the interaction motion side, and they don't know where to start. And so I'm thinking a great place to start would be knowing your design principles, but maybe you have a different idea or way of thinking about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's a great question. And when I was running the design school, I actually still have a course online that is just about that. How do you create a strategy for transitioning into UX design, regardless
Mm,
of background? So maybe we can link it somewhere. But people
yeah,
there,
sure.
I talk in it for 4 hours, so there's a much more comprehensive explanation of what I think you should do if you want to move into a UX design role. Now, from my experience running the design school, I have seen, and I think now in 2024, 2025, moving forward, is now more than ever, people who have a visual background can have an easier transition into
Mm,
UX design. For the reasons I kind of teased on in my previous response, the industry is now looking for generalists. The industry
okay.
is looking for people who can also create beautiful things and
Mm,
visualize them. So it's not just about doing proper thinking, critical thinking, systems thinking. It's also about your ability to bring that thinking and the solutions you come up with to bring them to life in a way that is beautiful and convincing and right. So this is a skill that is valuable again, because for many years people were like, UX design is not about pixels, UX design is not about making
mm,
pretty mockups, stop spending time on behance, stop spending time on dribble. That's not what UX design is, right? This was the kind of entire tone of voice in the industry. But now
yes.
people who are creating beautiful design are being looked at, they're being sought after,
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
still. So if you have this skill already because you're currently a graphic designer or any sort of visual artist, or this is what you've been doing, illustration, you have a strong advantage when you're going
Mm,
to transition into the UX space. Now, to your point, yes, understanding the principles of UX design, understanding the infamous, famous process of UX design, which is never one process. It's always different based on the context. And you rarely started from the beginning in your career. But I think it's still a good reference, right? The
sure.
UX process. If anybody wants to start with a process, I would recommend the Double Diamond. It's the one that they revisited recently. I think it's the Design Council, so from UK. So it's a framework that will kind of give you an understanding of how we solve problems in UX, and it's aging nicely.
Mm,
So the principles, the process, these are the things that you need to cover in theory, but then you also have to kind of do product design, right? So one way to start understanding what this is all about. And again, I talk much more about that in my course. I don't want to plug it. I don't make money from it. So it's not an ad. It's just that that's where I put all my
yeah.
thinking around the problem. So the thing is that you want to start with solving problems, right? So let's say you have a friend that has a website that doesn't really sell or
Mhm.
doesn't look good, or people don't understand what their business is about. That's an opportunity for you to help them and
Mm,
understand how do you construct products and messages and experiences in general, right? So just doing the UX process after you've explored the theory and then combining it with your visual skills is the way to move forward. And yeah, maybe just have a senior designer that you can occasionally talk to, like a mentor or something. So again, we can talk more about that, but I want to just highlight that visual people with visual skills are well positioned
mhm.
to have a successful career at this point in UX, with the caveat or disclaimer that the market is pretty strange right now. But I think it's the case everywhere in tech. So I don't want to promise like
Yeah.
being a UX designer, there are hundreds of jobs. They can't fill in positions. It's a strange time, but I think that it's definitely going to get a revival. And if you want to start preparing for that moment when the economy picks back up and the hiring party starts over, then if you want to be there when that happens, you can start today. Absolutely. And again, you have an advantage.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that that's probably going to be the similar track for a lot of people. Is like you said, it's so funny the way that you said, like maybe you have a friend or a colleague that has their website and it just doesn't look good or whatever. That's exactly where I started. Like when you were saying that, like I was still in school. I had just found Chris Do and the Future on YouTube, and like was taking courses there and like talking to CMs there, just learning and learning and learning. And somebody was showing me like their dad's website, and I was like, this looks like, I was like, I can make this better. Like I just had that thought. Like I am not a professional at any point. Like I majored in English, like I write all the time. But I was like, we can categorize this. It's almost like I could see how the pieces could at least be better. And some of this may be taste, which we could talk about later. It's just like having a log of like mood boarding and like I've seen X, Y, and Z and I really liked it. So I'm gonna take pieces from that and put it together. But like that's such a great place to start, is leveraging friends, family. Maybe you're not going to get paid a lot of money for it. In that instance, I did get paid some money for that, because they appreciated the time that I put into redoing the website. But it's like I got that one taste of like taking what was there and just transforming it into something that was definitely more modern, more interactive. And like I got that taste, and that led me down to more things. So the next question I have, I kind of diverged from that. That is what inevitably got me the job as a UX designer at my previous agency, doing some pretty cool work there. But that's kind of where I stopped. I never really left website world. So this is a little bit of a different track I want to ask you about, because there's website world, making cool websites, but then there's like more than that. Like you work at Miro, which is amazing. We were just on a call actually before this. My team and I, we get on a call and do a little design show and tell, and we like to do it in Miro because it's really easy. And so like there's designing for product. Put whatever product you have in your imagination there in the product slot. And then you have just designing websites.
Yeah.
Both I think can be under product design, because you have different kinds of websites. You have e-commerce sites where somebody really needs to be able to click add to cart. They need to be able to get to the cart. They need to be able to buy that thing. If you can't do that within the first several seconds on an e-commerce website, you need to reevaluate, do it again. That's kind of one area. But then there's like a design tool like Kittl, like what we work on, or like Miro, like what you work on, which are two different facets. And so I never left website world, really. I diverged into just graphic design, and that's what I teach here at Kittl, is just graphic design. But how would someone learn or move or elevate themselves from like getting out of just website world UX UI into like, yo, I want to design this app. Like I want to, maybe that's a good word to say, application design, website design, application design. They can be the same thing. Most of the time, I don't think they are. But is there a question in there that makes sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think it's a distinction that you
Okay.
get through education while you're in this industry. So you will learn that websites are fundamentally different.
Mm.
And the thing with websites is that the problems, in a way, are more known, right? So the
Yes.
level of
Yes.
unknown, like you can't really innovate a website to the point at which somebody has not seen that
It's
before.
not a new problem over and over again.
It's
Right.
not a new problem, right? So checkout flows have patterns. They're documented. There are standards for doing a checkout flow, right? You can reference them. A homepage, right? It's more about information. Websites are often led by content. Like, what do we want to say? And then how do we structure that, right? So the architecture of a website reflects the things that need to be said.
Yes.
Products, you
Yeah.
do things, you do more things, and each product has its own flavor of what needs to be done. So the user tasks are more diverse and they're more complex many times, right? So you can imagine designing for a product like Miro. I recently decided to leave Miro and start my own design studio. So now I can also pair this with the consultancy and hands on freelancing work experience.
Mm-hmm.
But in my time at Miro, we were working with a quite complex and open ended problem, right? So you have essentially a whiteboard, it's an infinite canvas
Yes.
that you can do a lot of things on
Yes.
that's fundamentally different from a website.
Oh yeah.
For the previous products I worked on, so for ING Bank, I worked on their mobile banking app called Home Bank. home bank is a place where people manage their finances and they have to be able to do payments. So it's like all the problem space that we use as users on Revolut or whatever it is we're using.
Right.
So I
Yep.
have to solve for those kinds of scenarios. So the scenarios are fundamentally different. The problems are more diverse and sometimes completely new. And
Mm.
like for Clipboard AI, the product I designed at UiPath with actually won Time Magazine's Best Invention of 2023 award. So it was considered an
Oh wow.
invention, and I have patents for it. So it was fundamentally new, a new interaction, fundamentally a new experience that I couldn't connect to anything that existed out there. So you're solving with product in general, you're solving more complex problems. It's less about, let's say, visual design, which kind of differentiates websites, right? So websites that stand out are typically beautiful. They don't have a
Mhm.
navigation system that innovates. You don't want innovation in a website because people will get lost, but
Mm.
they're very beautiful, right? So the
Yeah.
websites that are getting visibility or that are becoming popular or viral, they're more about visual beauty, right? With products, you don't need that as much. Airbnb looks the same as Instagram in terms of bottom navigation and whatnot, right? So those are
Mm.
not innovating by visual design, but
Yes.
the flow that you're experiencing. So
Okay.
it's more
Okay.
about crafting a tailored or very user task oriented experience.
Yes, because I mean that's an important principle because you don't want to try to create a brand new method of like you're not trying to like bring something that's not familiar, right? Like you said, it's the difference between like Airbnb, Verbo, Expedia, whatever, all these apps have the same similar functionality as like Facebook on your mobile app or Instagram on your mobile app or Pinterest on your mobile app because that's the threshold that we're familiar with. Yet the things we need to do on those apps are different. So the buttons are going to do different things. We need to get to different places. We need to save in a different way. You know what I mean? So I think that's like what people probably aren't always thinking about when they're trying to like turn from like, oh, I'm just going to build this website that looks this one way,
Mhm.
but then applications, products do different things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they do. And we with either of them, if there's a pattern, if there's a mental model, you don't want to break it, right? So you
Yes,
want
that's
to
yes.
think as people, like when we say a product is intuitive, what does it mean? It
Mm,
means that it reflects our mental models. It knows what our expectation in that context might be, and then it designs for that. If you want to uncover the mental models, you do research. But most of the times the products that work are not disruptive, they're not innovative. They're tapping into the existing mental models.
they're
And
not
to
reinventing the wheel. Yeah.
exactly. But some problems are new, right? So
Mm,
for
mm,
Clipboard AI, I was revolutionizing the way people copy and paste. You're breaking a pattern there. It's like with AI, right? Because now we have this opportunity to transfer information much faster, better. So it was a new problem. But to finish your first question, if the people who are building websites and have been doing that for a while want to transfer that knowledge or the skills into like level up to be able to design for products, the process or the thinking behind it is somewhat similar. So we're talking about different animals, if you want, and
okay.
different problems, but we do the same things. We understand who the audience is. We understand first who we're designing for. For a website, it's very similar. Like, is this a website for? Is this a fashion website? Is this a website for? Is this a media website, news or whatever? So
Blog. Yeah.
we understand the audience, so we think about who are the people who will be using this. We try to understand what their lives are, what their expectations are, what their mental models are. And then we map the scenarios, the paths that they're going to go on. And for websites, it's easier. It's like a portfolio website. Here's my work, here's my contact, right? But we still design for the audience. If it's a recruiter that comes here, what do recruiters want to see? If it's on my portfolio website, if it's a recruiter, or if it's someone who I can work with, if it's a client. So we're optimizing for different audiences. So what I'm trying to get to here is that the process is has a lot of common ground, and you just have to kind of expand the complexity, expect more complexity, and expect, like when you're building a website, another fundamental difference, and I'm going to shut up after that, is that when you're building a website, you're probably either a freelancer or you're working in a marketing team and you're kind of collaborating in a, I wouldn't say small necessarily group. Many times it can be a small group. So you're designing a website for a client, you're the designer, the client That's it. With products, you're working in a complicated ecosystem in big companies, right? So you have a product manager that you're going to collaborate with, you have developers, you have the CEO, and then you have the management layer, and then you have business analysts, and then the
Mhm.
resource. So it's like this cross-functional team that's more complex because the problem is more complex. And then there's a lot of the difference. One fundamental difference is in the level of collaboration and kind of putting together different disciplines, that this building products entails much more complexity in that aspect than building a website. So yeah, this is just to understand what the expectations and realities are.
Yeah, that's I think that's the best way I've probably heard that stated, in the differences of like, not only will a website look this way to serve this purpose and an app or a product will look this way, but like what's at stake or what's involved and what the process of actually working is completely different. So I really like how you place that. So a couple other things I want to talk about. I definitely want to get to AI and how you've seen that influencing UX product design over your experience, because I know there's a lot of exciting stuff and people have questions about that. But before that, I do want to just ask um, for any tips or strategies that you have for those that maybe are freelancing or starting to freelance in UX UI. Uh, Probably, I would assume more on the website. I'm assuming you can freelance as an application or a product designer. I don't know how that would work. Maybe you have a contract, I guess. But like, yeah, just tips. Getting work. It could be even as like what you should show. I just want to make sure that the people that are asking that question, they probably have that question like, okay, well, I'm a freelancer right now. How does this apply to me? I'm not working at a big team like at Miro or whatever. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of things here. One is, unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of building a following, go be public. I don't think everybody needs to do that. But if you want clients, then you kind of have to do that in a way. Like people have to find you, right? Or you have to find them.
Right.
So if you're in this, like if you're in a big company in your cozy chair and so on, you don't need to talk about what you're doing. You don't need to build a presence. But if you want to get more clients, then you might want to consider building a presence. A presence might mean if you have enough diversity in your projects, you can surface the projects that you want to do more work of, right?
Mhm.
So let's say you don't want to build websites and you've worked on your first app. Talk about the app experience on LinkedIn. Most of the times, LinkedIn works best for finding clients.
Okay.
You can even go on platforms. On platforms, it's a bit hard to start, and I don't have a lot of experience, but there are platforms like TopTal, which I was working on for freelancing as a product designer. So
Yeah.
my point is,
Another good one. Contra's a great site for that.
Contra, exactly. Yeah. So you will need a presence. Like
Mhm.
the condition for successful freelancing is finding clients, and then you can either put yourself out there in like a billboard. Here's what I do. Here's who I am, or you can reach them directly. But you have to have this like kind of sales component, right? And then if you have enough experience, you can put forward the projects you want to do more work. Like in my case, I'm gonna start freelancing. I'm building my design studio. I'm starting a small business in design, right? I
Mhm.
know I want to do more AI work. I want to focus on this space. This is
Mhm.
what the niche of my studio will be. So I will have a clear value proposition that is like when people get to me or I get to them, they know that if they have an AI problem, I can help them with that. So have a clear value proposition that is correlated with the work you want to do. And then, yeah, if you're very, very early, maybe you can volunteer. I don't know, do some work. Like um, if you wait for the perfect client in the beginning, it's going to be very hard to build experience. So you have to be more
Sure.
resourceful, and kind of like you were saying, right? Just redesign your friend's website.
Mhm.
And I think there was one other point I wanted to make. Um, yeah, the last point I wanted to make, which is a piece of advice, is storytelling. So when I
Mm.
say storytelling, it kind of correlates with presence and just being putting yourself out there. But when you put yourself out there, even for a hiring process, right? So I was recently talking to the juiciest company you can get a job at. I'm not going to name it, but in the recruitment process, one of the things that they mentioned was that they're really looking for a different way of thinking of things, like a kind of quirky, seeing that quirky part of your personality that is that talks about who you are. They don't want another designer who can do pretty screens. They want someone who has personality in one way or another. So where I'm trying to get with this is, you've seen the posts that go viral on LinkedIn with people who are looking for a job. It's the posts that have some personality in them, like nicely crafted videos where you talk about
Yeah.
who you are and what you're about. And so this kind of personality is more important than ever in the age of AI, because like automated things and things that don't have soul or emotion are available. We are outsourcing design to agents, right? So this is going to happen, but what will differentiate us and ensure that you can build nice relationships is this aspect of who you are as a person and whoever resonates with those aspects in you. So I used to be very neutral in all the content that I posted, like just here's a framework, here's a path, here's what you can do, here are resources. And now I'm more about, here's what I'm struggling with internally, and here's what I've learned the hard way. And here, like when you change into being more of a person and less of someone who executes,
Yeah.
then you increase your chances of being connected with the people who are looking for that kind of thing in their work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I think that it'll take people to kind of get into that mindset of that last one, the storytelling, the personality. I think that's probably what most people might struggle with. Some people it comes more naturally, some people it doesn't. But I think that if you can master that, spend some time on that, then, like you said, you're going to get clients. They're going to see you. They're going to see your, whether it's quirky, whether it's more serious, whether it's more refined, nouveau, whatever it is, they're going to see that and be drawn to you.
Yeah.
So now last thing I want to talk about is definitely how you've seen AI influenced, integrated with UX in the world of product design, or really just anything. I'm very much only on the side of like AI art. In Kittl, we have Kittl AI. We have an image sets generator, but now we have our AI Copilot, which can do things like write body text for you. It can completely transform your design into a different niche. It can help you generate color palettes you might not have thought of. So those are the kinds of things we're doing with design on the AI side, but they're much more visual. So I'm going to have to admit that I'm very much naive in terms of how AI has been implemented or what things there are in the world of UX and product design. So I'd love if you could just kind of give us a debrief on what you've seen over the last maybe couple of years, how you're utilizing it. You just said that you're going to be like specializing in that kind of thing with your studio. I'd love to know what that means. So I kind of want to give you free reign to like talk about the integration of artificial intelligence and UX, just so that we can all be aware of like what we should know.
Yeah. Well, in my AI talks and even in my content on LinkedIn, there is this slide where I show the process of UX design, like going from uncovering the problem, doing competitive analysis, and like every step of the process, drafting wireframes, creating color palettes, and so on, right? So in this process, I envision at each stage the way or the tool that AI and Kittl is in there, because I think
Mm.
it gives great control on visual elements. Like
Mhm.
I haven't found, there's this small thing that kind of made the whole difference for me. I have a nice shape or visual or kind of an abstract thing, and then I can search through dozens, like infinite versions of that, and kind of create an ecosystem of visual elements that I am using in my design. So it gives me very granular control, and I think it's a very nice um, feature that Kittl has. Anyhow, getting back to it. So at each stage of the process, you can inject some sort of AI support. Now,
Okay.
AI will not replace us. There's this quote that went around the internet: AI won't replace you, a person using AI will. It's wrongly attributed to me, even though, even in the course where I mentioned it and then it got popularized, I say that I couldn't find the person who said it. It's impossible. Like GPT can't find them. Nobody in the community,
Even AI can't find them.
nobody can find a person who first said that, and so people attribute it to me. But anyhow, I was saying that AI won't replace you, or person using AI will. Now the thing is that everybody will use AI, right? So there will not be there. I don't see a world where people will not. We're using it, like social media uses AI and we
Right.
use it. Waze is AI and we use it. Like Spotify
Mm.
uses AI, we use it. So it's in our lives already. Now, the way we capitalize this opportunity differently can make some difference. And in the design process, you can think of AI as a junior assistant that you have. So if you ever
Mm.
dreamed about having a person that sits by your side and does the work that you hate or don't want to do anymore or feel
Absolutely.
menial or repetitive, or AI can help you with that, right? But you decide what AI has to do. So the thing,
Mm.
the process, the governing, like here's what needs to happen for us to arrive at the proper solution. That's made of stages. At each stage, you decide and you control what the AI gives you, right?
Mm.
So if it's, let's go more tangible with examples, right? So now I'm in the stage when I'm doing competitive analysis. I don't really know a lot about the market, but I decide that now we're doing competitive analysis and this is necessary to my process. So I go on ChatGPT and I ask them, hey, look, I'm building a productivity app. Do you know what are the most popular productivity apps and why they're popular? And it will give you an overview. Of course, source citations, you have to check everything AI gives you.
Yeah.
Less so, right? So Perplexity is always gives you informed, researched sources. GPT does that as well now. So the thing is that you decide what is the right place in which AI can be injected, and you have to check whatever AI has created, right? So you can't say do mockups for me and then that's it, you ship them to be built. You have to look at them, you have to
Mm.
edit them, you have to tweak them, you have to fix what AI can't do yet. So in a way we will still in every way we will still decide what is the process that needs to happen, what are the artifacts or the things or the stages that need to be together in order to solve this system of the problem, and then AI can be a part of each of those parts, but we are doing the thinking
Yeah.
still. And then when it comes to producing design, right? So AI will produce design. It's already doing it. We're creating images with AI. Now, Figma has introduced First Draft, which was
Yeah, I
only
saw that.
designs. Miro has recently acquired Wizard, which is a tool that I love, and they were creating UI with through prompting, right? So you can
Interesting.
create mockups, you can create prototypes, you can create, in the future we will create websites. That's already also
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
well, right? So we won't need like what happened, like no code tools and AI coming together. That means that we will say, I need a website for my flower shop, and then the website gets created and
Yeah, it's
shipped.
like what we have where where you can put in a prompt in our design generator and say, I need a logo for my flower shop, and it'll give you options. Yeah.
Exactly. So design will be produced with AI. Now,
Mhm.
we ask AI what to produce, so that's always in our hands, and we decide if what it produced is what we're looking for, and we decide, we give it creative direction, right? We are writing the brief. And so we will not be in the future generators of design, but we will become curators of design. So
Mm.
this is how I think we should start thinking about our roles. We will not push pixels around. We will not be the ones ensuring responsiveness in a website, but we will be the ones who will decide what is the mission of that website? What
Mm.
is it trying to convey? What is it trying to, what's the good that it can bring to the person who's visiting it, right? What can I do for that person? And can AI help me achieve that? So I think this is the way, think of AI as an instrument that will replace some of your tasks, and I think that's great. Like I don't want to
Mm.
push pixels as much anymore, like tweak corners and so on, and make sure that, I don't know, websites are responsive. Okay, let AI do that, but I am still the one who articulates the vision and who asks AI to do whatever it is doing.
Yeah, it sounds like the way you describe it is allowing AI to free you up to become the creative director, to take
Yeah.
the reins back as your own creative director or the creative director over whatever project. And you're going to have AI do most of the tedious work, but also help with ideation, I would assume as well. Like that also comes into play with generating images, generating concepts. I mean, I've tried to push specifically our AI. I don't really mess with too many others. I mean, I've messed with Ideogram and DaVinci Resolve and stuff, but I've tried pushing it to the limits and putting prompts in there that we're not designed for it. You know, like show me the homepage of a what you think a da 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 would look like, just to see. You know what I mean? And so that leads me to maybe like a kind of a fun question for you, just out of curiosity. Like, what's like the craziest AI integration or tool that you've used or witnessed or seen? Like, what's the craziest one that's been able to produce something where you just kind of sat back and you were like, I didn't think that was going to work, or like, I don't believe that this has provided this for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had that recently. If you would have asked me like 2 months ago, I wouldn't have known what to answer. But in
Oh
the
wow.
meantime, it happened. I had my AI mind blow moment. It was actually so intense that I cried. Like it always, I almost felt mystical, right? It
Wow.
felt like I'm having a religious experience because now I can see how the future of humanity and tech and the world we live in is fundamentally different after
Mm.
this point. Like it felt like, I don't know. It was really religious. It was really odd because I'm not even a religious person, but it really felt spiritual. Now, with this hyped intro, I'm
Yeah.
talking.
Right.
I'm talking, and then every time I showed it to another person, I cried again. So it's like it doesn't fade. Even 2 months into it, it doesn't fade. So I was writing my newsletter, and I was about to send it to my followers, and that newsletter was about what's going on, like some sort of most interesting news in design and AI, what Figma has launched, what Meta has launched, what everyone is doing, blah. And then there was this tool that was being discussed a lot called Notebook LM.
Mm.
It's essentially a tool that supports you in doing research, transforming papers, information, and so on. But one other thing that it does, and it's not its core user value, is it can transform your text into a podcast. And so I gave it my newsletter, the one I was writing. Here's my newsletter, and then it transformed it into a podcast. And I was listening to it. And anyone who's interested can text me on LinkedIn, and I can send them the
Wow.
link to that generated podcast, or they can try it out themselves. Take any article from the internet, go on Notebook LM, and try to turn it into a podcast and prepare to have your mind blown. This
Did
was
it
the
sound? Did it sound like you, or was it like a generic voice?
no, it's generic voice
Okay.
for now, right? But in the future, AI will.
Because 11 Labs can do that. You can give it the script. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so it can do that. But I think what really was impressive with this product from Google was that the conversation between them, it's not just the voice, that it sounded very human, and you had like for no second the vibe that this is AI. It
Mm.
felt very natural, like
Wow.
with pauses, with I don't know, do you think so, like the
Yeah. Yeah.
inflection,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything was extremely well done and realistic. Not just that, but the way AI took each idea and pushed it further, not in this kind of generic, wishy washy abstraction GPT kind of style. You know how GPT does that, right? So it
Yes.
takes an idea and it makes it more abstract, and it's like it de-washes the meaning from it. No, this tool takes your idea and really adds interesting questions to it. Like
Hmm.
it's challenging, it's thought provoking the way it interprets and shuffles around the things that you're saying, and it added so much more that was in there, right?
Hmm.
It wasn't scripting my newsletter. It kind of just took the big categories of things and then it expanded on it in a conversation that flew supernatural. It's mind-blowing. I can't, however long I talk about it, you're not going to get it. You have to
You
listen
have to
to it,
try it.
go try it out. Try you my newsletter, the newsletter in which it's shared, it's still, you can read it, it's there for free, so you just have to check my newsletter
Now, what
issue.
is it that you're doing with that? Did you start a did you put it on like Spotify, or are you just sharing it for like what? I wouldn't have even thought to go that kind of route with it, just because I wouldn't be thinking. I mean, I wrote my newsletter. I'm going to send it out. They're going to read it. That's what the newsletter is. So what is, I guess what I'm asking is the use case. Like, were you just trying to find something that would just turn it into a podcast so that you could start one, or what are you doing with it?
Yeah, well, I run a podcast for 4 years. I have my own podcast. It's called Honest UX Talks, is where I talk a lot of honest and transparent and painful things about the design industry with my co-host. So we are running this podcast. I don't want to have an AI generated podcast, even if it's based on my ideas. The point was just experimentation. Like, let's see what this
Mm,
tool does, and then I included it in the newsletter so that everyone can see the
mm,
magic that I
right.
witnessed. So I just added it as an MP4 or whatever. But I have decided that at the end of every AI Goodies newsletter, I will turn it into a podcast version. So everything that I write in the newsletter, I will generate a podcast version with Notebook LM. And then whoever wants to listen to the better version of my newsletter in a conversation, they can take that listening route.
So it
So
generates two people talking.
yeah, I think it's the
Okay, that.
same people all the time. I don't think they have controls like choosing voices, characters. I don't think that's what they're solving for.
Mhm.
But two people talking about your thing, and they talk so fluidly and nicely, and
That
it's
is very scary and interesting.
scary. Well, yeah, it's very scary. Like not in 10, in 2 years, in 1 year, Drew, we don't have to meet. Like, my AI knows my voice and your AI knows your voice, and then we ask them to chat and generate this conversation because it already is fed into my ideas. My ideas are not new. They're
Yeah.
in my courses, they're on the internet, they're in podcasts. AI will know
Mm,
what I'm thinking about, and your AI will also know you very well because you also have a lot of content that you can train it on. And so we will train our little AIs, and they will meet, and we will sit back and relax on a beach somewhere. Yeah, right. So
interesting.
I think that it's true. This is very possible, I think, even today. But people still want to listen to people, right? So if you
Yes.
know
Yes.
that, so like the magic of a conversation where maybe I say something controversial or unexpected or I break the character,
By the
right?
book. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's still we are. I think people are searching for human more than
I
ever.
agree. Yeah. And I was getting ready to make that point, just because, as someone who lives on YouTube all day long, in over 700 plus videos that are on our channel, and just meeting so many other YouTubers, I'm well attuned to everything that goes on YouTube. And there's just been this massive overtaking of faceless AI channels. And I don't want to suggest that they're necessarily bad. I don't think that they're harming anyone, especially if the ones are more kind of educational in content. That's kind of the ones that I've been seeing. But it definitely doesn't give me what I want. Like, I'm definitely looking for my normal YouTubers that I know as soon as I click the video, they're going to be on the camera. I'm going to be able to see them in their context, just like when people see us, they're going to see us in our context.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I would say that I've just been seeing so much more of that. Like, let me show you how you can make $100,000 a year with a faceless YouTube channel. I'm like, I'm sure you can do that, but I just don't want to, because I'd rather be because I know, like what you just said, is people are, the more and more and more AI that happens, I do believe the more and more physical touch is going to be sought after. So if I can just continue to build the personal relationship, that's always there and available. And like you said, I really like how you defined AI as the helper, as like we call it the co-pilot in Kittl. But like you said, your assistant, design assistant, that's also great, or UX assistant. I think that's such a healthy way to think about it. Yeah. So I think just the last thing, I want to give you the freedom and range to talk about anything that's coming up for you. I always do this at the end of every one of our talks, is let our guests share anything they want people to know, direct people to. You mentioned you had courses. I definitely will link your LinkedIn, because it's amazing. I was reading a lot of your posts earlier today, and I was like, these are so well crafted. And just all the experience and things you have. So just tell people what you want them to know, where you want them to go, or what you want them to do, and we'll see if we can make that happen. And I'll share everything in the description.
Yeah, I will do that in a second. I just want to add one more point to the thing
Okay.
that you said, because it kind of slipped. You gave me the opportunity there, but I just lost it. So I'm getting back to it. I feel that AI will not replace the things we enjoy. It shouldn't, right? So to
Right.
your point that you don't want to, you can make a YouTube video that will bring you money, but is that the point of the things that we're doing?
Mm.
Is that
Be-
what will make us happy? Just, I mean, money can obviously contribute to your happiness, but here's what I was recently writing in an interview, in a
yeah.
written interview. I was saying that I never use AI to write. I use it to kind of check my
Edit.
grammar,
Yeah.
whatever. Like this sounds wrong. Is it really wrong? And most of the times it's not wrong, which is interesting. So it turns out we don't really need so much AI in our lives. But the thing is that I don't use it for anything creative.
Mm.
Is a self-expression need. So if I have to if I'm creating something artistic, like right now I'm working on a book, right? That's
Yes.
kind of my cathartic therapeutical
Mm.
experience. It's
Okay.
something I'm doing to express something emotionally, put something honest, authentic out there. I don't want to have AI interfere with this process because it loses the raison d'etre, right? So we're doing this creation acts because we want to say something. And if AI says it's for us, it loses the purpose. So,
Yes.
same for my posts. I don't write with AI because it defeats the purpose of that kind of reflection and critical thinking exercise and just putting my brain at work to distill something that I've experienced and share it with the world. So I don't want to draft that with AI. Why would I? Because it doesn't have the cleansing and the like interior reflection effect. So I don't want to lose that. Now, where people can find me: LinkedIn with my name, obviously. On Instagram, you can find me as UX Goodies. That's my main channel. But I think I'm more active on LinkedIn these days.
Mm.
On in Yeah, so I run this newsletter called AI Goodies, which is where I put all my thinking without AI about AI. UX Talks is my podcast, and I will be doing a lot of talks next year. I'm coming to Canada, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, and I don't know. I think that's me in a nutshell. Maybe just one thing. Yeah, if you want to learn more about AI, I teach a course called AI for Designers at Interaction Design Foundation, and I will link you um, the link to that in the show notes or somewhere. And I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and talk to our users and help us kind of understand where UX is today. And if there's anything that you all have a question about, please drop it in the comments. You can comment here on YouTube or in Spotify now, which is a really cool feature. So if there is something that a question directed towards either of us, that's content that we can make. That's a newsletter. You could write that, even if it's a specific and a well-crafted question. We'd love to know how to help you further, and also just share your thoughts in general. Like what we discussed today. We want to know your thoughts, where you see AI going, how you're using it. That'd also be really interesting to know. So thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.